Your brain is lying to you. It's telling you that you want to watch The Office again. But here's the disturbing truth. You're not choosing comfort. You're running from something. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly what. Netflix has 15,000 titles. Disney Plus just dropped 47 new shows. HBO is screaming at you to watch their latest masterpiece. But there you are, wrapped in the same blanket, same couch position, watching Jim prank Dwight for the 47th time. And honestly, you wouldn't have it any other way. But here's what nobody tells you. This isn't laziness. This isn't being basic. This is your brain performing emergency surgery on itself. And the psychology behind it? It's actually kind of terrifying. Your comfort show isn't a guilty pleasure. It's a prescription your brain wrote for itself. See, I used to judge rewatchers. I thought they were just stuck, unambitious, afraid of new experiences. Then I dove into the research, and what I found made me rewatch Breaking Bad 3 times in a row. Not because I wanted to, because I finally understood what my brain was actually doing. Let's start with something called repetition compulsion. Sigmund Freud, yeah, that Freud, discovered that humans are hardwired to repeat experiences, not because we're boring, but because repetition creates neural pathways that feel like home. Your brain doesn't distinguish between real relationships and fictional ones. When you watch Friends, your brain literally thinks Monica, Chandler, and Joey are your actual friends. It releases oxytocin, the same hormone you get from hugging someone you love. You're not watching a show. You're visiting people who never disappoint you, never leave, never change. And in a world where everything changes, that's not weakness, that's survival. Let me introduce you to the first type of rewatcher, the Chaos Refugee. These people aren't watching old shows because they're boring. They're watching them because their real life is a dumpster fire. Job uncertainty, relationship drama, family chaos. The news is a horror movie that never ends. Their brain is screaming for one thing it can control, one thing that won't surprise them, one thing where they know the ending before it begins. Psychologists call this uncertainty intolerance. And here's the kicker. People with high uncertainty intolerance are often the most intelligent, most analytical people in the room. Their brains are constantly running simulations, predicting outcomes, preparing for threats. By the end of the day, they're mentally destroyed. In a world where you can't control your boss, your bills, or your future, you can control what plays on your screen. And that tiny act of control, it's keeping you sane. Rewatching isn't escape. It's recovery. It's your brain saying, please, just give me 22 minutes where nothing unexpected happens. Type 2 is fascinating. I call them the emotional archaeologist. These people aren't watching the show, they're excavating their own past. Every rewatch is a time machine. That sitcom they watched with their dad before he passed? It's not entertainment, it's a seance. That movie they saw on their first date with their ex? It's not nostalgia, it's grief processing. Neuroscientists discovered something wild. When you rewatch something from your past, your brain doesn't just remember the show, it reconstructs the entire emotional state you were in when you first watched it. The smells, the feelings, the person sitting next to you. Some people visit graves, some people look at old photos. Emotional archaeologists, however, they press play, and for 90 minutes, the people they've lost are alive again, sitting right next to them on the couch. You're not being sentimental, you're performing self-therapy. You're visiting a version of yourself that still exists somewhere in your neural architecture. And sometimes, that's the only way to feel whole again. Let's continue with Type 3, the Cognitive Bankrupt. Type 3 is the most common and the most misunderstood, the Cognitive Bankrupt. We live in the only era in human history where choosing not to consume more content is considered a personality flaw. These are the people who make 10,000 decisions a day. What to wear, what to eat, which email to answer first, which meeting matters, which crisis to prioritize. By 7 p.m., their prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part of the brain, is completely depleted. Watching something new requires cognitive investment. You have to learn new characters, understand new plot lines, predict new outcomes. Your exhausted brain looks at that and says, absolutely not. But rewatching? That's cognitive fast food. Your brain already knows the menu. It doesn't have to work. It can just exist. This isn't laziness. This is your brain in power-saving mode. And honestly, it's genius. You're not avoiding new content. You're protecting your mental bandwidth for things that actually matter. Now, Type 4 is completely different. These are the pattern hunters. They're not rewatching because they're tired or sad or nostalgic. They're rewatching because they're obsessed. They believe every great show is a puzzle. Every scene has hidden meaning. Every background detail is intentional. First watch, they got the plot. Second watch, they caught the foreshadowing. Third watch, they're analyzing color theory and noticing that the director put a specific painting in the background that references a 1987 French film that predicted the entire ending. These people have high openness to experience and high analytical intelligence. Their brains are wired to find patterns everywhere. And for them, rewatching isn't repetition, it's investigation. They're not stuck, they're going deeper. And honestly, they're usually right. There are hidden layers. Most people just don't have the patience to find them. But here's where it gets uncomfortable, because there is a dark side to rewatching. When rewatching becomes the only thing you do, when you can't handle any new content, when the thought of watching something unfamiliar triggers actual anxiety, that's not comfort anymore. That's avoidance. Some people use rewatching to hide from their own growth. They stay in fictional worlds because real life requires change, and change is terrifying. They know every line of The Office, but can't remember the last time they had a real conversation with a real human. The difference between healthy rewatching and problematic rewatching is simple. Are you recharging, or are you hiding? One fills your cup, the other keeps you stuck. But here's the beautiful truth that nobody talks about. Most rewatchers aren't hiding, they're healing. The algorithm wants you anxious. Familiar content makes you calm. You're not broken, you're resisting. In a world that demands constant novelty, constant productivity, constant growth, choosing the familiar is an act of rebellion. It's saying, I don't need to consume more. I don't need to chase the algorithm. I don't need to prove I'm cultured by watching every new release. Every time you press play on something you've seen before, you're not going backward. You're giving yourself permission to stop performing. The people who judge rewatchers are the same people who burn out by 35, wondering why they feel empty despite watching everything important. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is press play on something you've seen 100 times and let your brain finally rest. So, which one are you? The Chaos Refugee protecting your peace? The Emotional Archaeologist visiting your past? The Cognitive Bankrupt conserving your energy? Or the Pattern Hunter going deeper? Drop it in the comments and tell me, what's the one show or movie you've rewatched more times than you'd ever admit? I'll go first. Mine is Interstellar. 14 times. No regrets. If this video made you feel seen, smash that subscribe button, because next week, we're diving into the psychology of people who can't finish shows. And trust me, that one's even weirder.